And welcome to another episode of the Trevor Report. It is Wednesday. I am actually recording this in the morning, though very early in the morning. But anyway, let's jump right on into it, and we'll get into something in a later segment. And all I'm going to say is the people who did this get what they deserve, so stay tuned for segment 5. But anyway, let's continue. Illinois enforcement laws come under scrutiny. And this is a full context article from theacropolisnews.com. And, it's not a full context article, it's a Just News article. Haven't had one of these on the website in a while. But one of my anonymous writers chipped one in, which was very nice, very, very kind of you, good sir. Thank you very much. But anyway, long story short, what's happening here? And I used to do this a lot, where I'd break things down from a sort of political and philosophical perspective, and I've been doing things from the political perspective a lot, but not necessarily from the philosophical perspective. So I'll do it right now. And basically, the TLDR of this is there are two forms of justice. The first form of justice is very much the old school form of justice, the correct form of justice, as you were, in the sense that it's actually justice, where the enforcers of law in society treat the people who violate the law, especially when the people who violate the law violate a person as well, be it their body, their property, etc., which their property is also their body. But nevertheless, the expectation is that the person who committed that crime should be punished because they need to repay their debt to society in some way. Now, there's this newer form of justice that's come about the past couple hundred years from the Enlightenment, and this form of justice essentially boils down to there's no such thing as an evil person, only evil society, And what we should do is we should render people harmless instead of make society. What we should do is we should render people harmless and make society better by debauching things. I'm being facetious. You get the point. There's one view of justice that punishes the guilty in order to protect the innocent, and then there's you reimagine people and society in your image in order to render the people who commit crimes harmless instead of punishing them. Which, the second one is stupid because it leads to things like this. Illinois non-detainable offenses beginning January 1st, 2023. Aggravated battery, aggravated DUI, aggravated fleeing, arson, burglary, drug-induced homicide, threatening a public official. Well, threatening a public official falls under the First Amendment, technically. I understand that there's a Supreme Court case that says otherwise, but if you're going by the letter of the law of the Constitution, well, I understand the argument that someone would make for threatening a public official. I would never threaten a public official. I'd just go to their public office and tell them why they're wrong, because I can do that in the United States, but whatever. Second degree murder, robbery, kidnapping, intimidation. But the reason why it becomes a non-detainable offense is because essentially what the bill does is it completely eliminates the bail system altogether, and then so everyone's put under house arrest, which is fine, and that's probably putting people on house arrest is probably better. There's probably some logistical issues or whatever, but it's ultimately a better system than than cash bail, because bail's gone pretty excessive in the United States. But the other problem that you arise at is with anyone on house arrest is, well, what if they're in violation of their house arrest? What if, and they do so for a long period of time? Well, this law, called the Safety Act, because it's passed by gaslighting abusers, also known as politicians, they've decided to not let people. This is so stupid. They're not going to enforce it until after 48 hours, which means they could be in someone else's jurisdiction. They could be in a different country in 48 hours, which is so stupid. It's so stupid. What if you say, I don't know, kidnap a child and then use intimidation to get the child for ransom, and then you after completing that robbery, right? You then burn the house with the family inside, and then you rob the neighbor, but the neighbor is there, so you then inject the person that's inside with 47 heroin needles, killing them of a drug overdose, and then you drive around angrily with two of those heroin needles inside you, and you run into a few people, and then that's when you get arrested, because a corpse is under your tires, preventing the tires from moving properly, and then you get arrested. Well, you could be under house arrest for 40, where they won't enforce the parole of the house arrest for over 48 hours. Anyway, let's continue. Please load. Please don't tell me this is deleted. Anyway, so there's a Democrat running for the 22nd district in a Senate race. I forget the state that he's running in, but he is the only candidate, not the only candidate for Democrats, for just Democrats. Diego Espinosa. Okay, he's running for a district in Arizona. He is the only one running. The only one. He dropped out. he just dropped out. Which is fine. The people of Arizona can do better than a coward, I guess. I don't know what to say about this. This came across and I found it funny. Anyway, politician accused of Las Vegas journalist murder was upset over reporting his DNA was found at the crime scene, police say. Robert Tellis, 45, was booked on suspicion of murder after prominent Review Journal reporter Jeff German was killed over the weekend. The man accused of killing a Las Vegas investigative journalist was upset over the stories a reporter wrote about him, and his DNA was found at the crime scene, authorities say. Wow, he must be one of those semi-fascist MAGA Republicans, according to believe these racist, sexist, homophobic, alt-right, neo-Nazi, maggot, fascist bigots are just such a threat to democracy, guys. They're just such a threat to democracy and the rule of law and all of those things. He was a Democrat. Fox News reports the arrest of a Democratic public official in Las Vegas for allegedly murdering a journalist shocked the nation, but news went out of their way to bury his party affiliation. Clark County Public Administrator Robert Tells was arrested on Wednesday in connection with the death of a Las Vegas Review Journal investigative reporter, Jeff German, who was fatally stabbed in front of his home on Saturday. German's reporting had exposed scandals that plagued Tells, including a hostile work environment and an extramarital affair with a staffer, which was followed by his re-election defeat during a Democratic primary held in June. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department said they found Tells' DNA at the scene of the crime, and his car matched the description of a vehicle seen on surveillance footage taken near Germain's home. So, DNA evidence, which It's not like fingerprints. Like, okay, if your DNA is at a crime scene, the only way there's three possible scenarios. You were there at the scene of the crime, but you weren't committing the crime, and you were also stabbed, or you were defending yourself. The second way is the obvious way, which is you did the crime. The third way is if you're being framed, and I doubt he's being framed. Look at his mugshot. This is not the mugshot of someone who looks framed. And by the way, you may think it's very petty of me that I'm using his mugshot as evidence, but lawyers use mugshots as evidence. It's like, does this look like someone who's guilty? Long story short, if you're ever in a position where you need to take a mugshot, be sure to take one and show your genuine emotions, because if you were framed, you need to look distraught. If you are, but this looks like someone who's angry, not sad, not distraught, angry. Anyway, let's continue. Pro-Trump conspiracy theorist Mike Lindell says that the FBI seized his phone at a fast food restaurant. Congratulations, Independent. The New York Times is officially a better journalist, officially has more journalistic integrity than you do. The New York Times, the same New York Times who sided with, well, they didn't side with the Nazis and the communists. They just gave favorable reporting to the Nazis and the communists. But anyway, Mike Lindell, a prominent promoter of beliefs that disagree with the cathedral's harmonized narrative, was served with a search warrant, and his cell phone was seized by the paramilitary wing of the cathedral. Agents who questioned him about his ties to a Colorado County clerk who was accused of tampering with voting machines, Mr. Lindell said. Time Peters, the county clerk in Mesa County, Colorado, is under indictment on state charges related to a scheme to download data from election equipment after the 2020 presidential contest. Ms. Peters has pleaded not guilty to the charges. How could the voting machines store data? How do they store data? What? This is so stupid. This is so stupid. Okay, it's either the which one is it? Is it this? Because there's two scenarios to this. One, you take some of the data. You let her take the data. You let her analyze the data and come up with nothing. The second scenario is you punish Mike Lindell for associating with Peters, who did something else. Who did. Either if these machines this is Mike Lindell's and everyone in the sort of the free to vote types, this is their entire contention, is that these machines can be tampered with. If Miss Peters was able to tamper with a voting machine and you're punishing her, great, fantastic. You should arrest other people too, FBI, but it's not going to happen. And that is because Miss Peters and Mr. Lindell, they are, what's an elegant way to put it? I'm not going to put it elegantly. They are the lessers in society. Okay? The United States is entering what is essentially, or it's not entering, we've been here for years now, it's anarcho-tyranny. And that's another thing with the first segment right here. Okay, why the Illinois laws come under scrutiny. Okay, it's because essentially there's a two-tier justice system. There is equal protection under the law. There is constitutional republicanism for the betters in society. For the lessers in society, we are essentially treated worse than King George ever treated the original colonists. which is not okay. That's not okay. It's simply inexcusable. And yes, the New York Times says 2020 election misinformation. I just said the beliefs of the cathedral because, and it says the FBI, not paramilitary wing of the cathedral. But, in case there's someone new watching this, I should probably explain myself a little bit. But it just kind of gets to a point where, look, Robert Telles was let go. Okay? The guy, he literally murdered a journalist, and we have evidence of this. He's fine. And the FBI is persecuting the threat to democracy from the people who are trying to get transparency of the 2020 election. An election that's already over with, that happened 2 years ago. It'll get to a point where if you let them do this, by the time they figure everything out, by the time they allocate the resources necessary to analyze the 2020 election to the extent that they wish to do, it'll be 2023, 2024. I don't understand this. Well, okay. I do understand this, and I think they just get a kick out of treating people as second-class citizens. This is my experience. I'm sure this is for my viewers. I'm sure many of you have this experience as well, where you can just see the look in their eyes as they treat you like dirt. Okay? They like doing it. That's all there is to it. They simply enjoy doing it. And it just becomes one of those things where, you know what, it's time to just build our own institutions, build our own economy. Okay, it's time to seceding from the union doesn't matter. It means nothing. What we should do instead is we should just say, look, you can have your weird cult where you treat the people who disagree with you politically as second-class citizens. You can have your weird circling fire squad. Okay, you can have, over there, you can have your drag queen story hour for toddlers, and you can give and you can have children tip drag queens or whatever. You can have that. We'll go over here where we don't do this. You can be weird over there, and we can be normal over here. That's what it's time to have this. It simply is. But anyway, moving on. Dr. Oz. Here's the sort of caliber of difference. Okay, I've made my views of Dr. Oz perfectly clear. I think that there were better candidates in the primary election, though I don't remember their names and I didn't really look into them that well. But I remember there being someone that was more conservative, but very much in the Burkean light of conservatism. And I would have preferred him, a proper Burkean conservative. Maybe it was a she. Either one, okay? Over Dr. Oz. I've made that clear. But Dr. Oz saw someone in the crowd that collapsed, and he stayed, and he went off his stage and helped her until the paramedics arrived. Which is not something you can stage. Which, if it is staged, bravo, Dr. Oz. But I doubt it. This is not something that you can stage, because there's the entire crowd of people, and they'll have to be in on it, and it's just way too much. But look, Mike Lindell, good job. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. Jack Posobiec posted a meme on his Instagram where he's basically like, well, he didn't post a meme. He posted a photo of Trump at Ground Zero during 9/11 on September 11th, and this was fact-checked to high hell. I don't know why they insisted on fact-checking this. Look at the fact checks. No evidence that Donald Trump paid hundreds of workers to help with the search and rescue after 9/11. Was Donald Trump at Ground Zero for survivors 2 days after 9/11 with workers he he paid for. And this is the fact check. They found some random loser who was like, oh, and he also paid hundreds of people to come, and that may or may not be true. So they took the thing that may or may not be true, and they were like, and this is essentially what they did. Tim Pool is a fan of doing this. I'll use his example. Did Donald Trump do this while wearing tennis shoes and doing a backflip? Yes, he did do a backflip, but he did not do it while wearing tennis shoes. Fact check, false. And that's what fact checkers do essentially. And so it's basically used to fact check Donald Trump not being in New York and helping people during 9/11, or like during the aftermath of the attack on the towers on 9/11, and presumably a few days afterward. And it's like, why would you go out of your way to fact check this? Well, you would go out of your way to fact check this because you simply just hate him. You simply just hate him. Okay, and even the institutions themselves. There's a whistleblower at Twitter who's basically opened the floodgates for how terrible Twitter as a place is. I am being vindicated every single day for not making a Twitter account every single day. Okay, and I'm just kind of at this point where I'm like, thanks people at Twitter for giving me a reason to not make a Twitter account. But anyway, let's continue. The Secret Curriculum Part 4. I went over this on the Critical Introverts podcast over on Critical Introverts over on Odyssey and Rumble, etc. And we went over this. I did my coverage of the Secret Curriculum Parts 1 through 3 on the previous Trevor Report. Go check it out. All previous reports linked down below in the description. But essentially, let's get into it. NYC middle school teacher encourages students to engage in political violence, throw bricks at people with opposing views. She is instructing her middle school classes to engage in violent praxis for left-wing causes, which, oh boy. This as Joe Biden would put it, who definitely is not a senile old fool and just has a stutter. Semi-fascists. The anti-MAGA Republicans are semi-fascists who are a threat to democracy. I don't have any red lighting, and I'm not going to have a black, like a pitch black background with blood red lights behind me, because I'm not going to do those optics, because I'm not evil. But anyway, this is presumably where she got her so-called education, or more accurately, where she was radicalized. The City University of New York Herbert H. Lehman College. Don't harass them or don't do anything about that. Just don't send your kids to this college. Every time we find one of these insane lunatics, I'm going to figure out where they go to college, and I'm going to instruct my audience to not let their children go to this college. I don't care how prestigious these institutions are. These institutions should not be permitting these kinds of people. Okay? Because here's the thing. Now that the Biden administration is paying off debts, what's essentially happening is the American taxpayers are essentially funding a revolution against the American taxpayers now. Okay? And are paying for the training of their soldiers, formerly of this revolution, formerly known as their children, in order to achieve this goal. Don't send your kids to Herbert H. Lehman College at New York. Okay? Don't send your kids to that. Don't send your kids to that college, and don't take your kids to any school that is under the jurisdiction of the NYC Department of Education. Really is that simple. Really is that simple. They can have their cult over there and their Rockefeller education, and they can have it over there. Okay, they can have their education that produces followers and cults. Okay, and we can have our education over here that does not do this. It really is that simple. But before I move on to the final segment, I just like to let everyone know I am building my own institution. Okay, Acropolis News Network is many things. Okay, it is a dissident think tank. It is a journalistic outlet. I hope to have some original reporting for premium members very soon. Be sure to create an account, because here's the thing: not only does your membership give you access to the exclusive reporting. Okay, your membership gives you access to what will essentially be an alternative to Netflix. So think about this for a moment, okay? Does a subscription to Netflix, which is $20 for one person, by the way, a month, does that give you access to exclusive reporting? Does that give you access to a dissident think tank as well? I didn't think so. I'm already better than Netflix, so be sure to check it out in the description. And the reason I have to build institutions, or more accurately, I have to build faster than they can destroy, is because of this. Now, there's a man who used artificial intelligence. This is why I took this tweet from the Wayback Machine, and essentially they did a coalition of the margins to attack the center, a Kimberly Crenshaw critical race theorist way of going about things, and they did it to The Little Mermaid. Now they're being insane lunatics. Okay, what they're doing is they're taking an original property and an original medium for very specific purposes, and what they're doing essentially, or at least here's my view of this: the people in Hollywood have inherited an empire that they do not understand. Okay, and they don't understand it because they did not build it. And so what they've done is they've essentially taken. They just repurpose art to serve ideological goals. And so what you're doing whenever you're engaging with a piece of art from anything in the sort of not mainstream, in the corporate side of things, okay, what you're essentially engaging with is a medium of art that has been deliberately debauched along ideological lines. Okay, the average person does not care how the characters are cast. Okay, but critical race theorists or black nationalists, they are so obsessed with representation, because how they view things is if they get their version of representation into everything, then it forces other people to talk about it, and thus propagates it. Okay? Because fundamentally, the critical race theorists view things only through the lens of power. So to be honest, I was never going to watch this movie in the first place. I wasn't. And by the way, the guy who used artificial intelligence to change the skin color of Ariel in the trailer, okay, if it was done for a joke, good pants. I'm just gonna say, my God, you know. But if it was done along the lines of white nationalism, which is effectively the same thing, you're effectively the same person, and I'm going to say the same thing to you. But I really hope it was just a joke. Okay, and by the way, this before I had to write here, this was a tweet and from a guy, and he was just like, oh yeah, so there's this guy who did this thing. Check out this thing that this guy did. And a lot of people freaked out. A lot of people freaked out, and then he got his and then this guy got his Twitter banned for acknowledging that someone did something else, because, again, Twitter is awful, Twitter is terrible, and I'm just going to leave it at that. In the meantime, my name is Trevor Brown, and you've just watched the Trevor Report. Do click the link tree down below in the description that I was forced to make because Linktree banned my link tree. So I made my new one, but it's on my website instead. So do be sure to click that link down below in the description, and also click the first link in the description below to become a member of the Acropolis affiliate program. Okay, acropolis.gofpro.com. Okay, promote A&M memberships, get a slice of the pie, and cherry on top, support independent media and independent journalism. And I'll see you all in the next one. All of you brilliant viewers out there, my name is Trevor Brown. I am the editor-in-chief of Acropolis News Network because I can give myself whatever name and title I want because I own it. You could go to theacropolisnews.com, or you could go to This Just Trevor on whatever Liberty platform is your choice. Except for the ones I'm not on because I haven't seen them. Pretty much.
Acropolis News. News from the Acropolis.